and you're connecting with the people that are all sitting at a communal table together, that energy is reciprocal.
I had no idea how much it would help my mental health, my relationship with food.
Because we all eat at the end of the day, and we're supposed to do it in community. So.
Hey Huskies and friends, Wagwan. Welcome back to the best student podcast ever. Yeah, I know you agree because you're here every week and I'm super happy that you keep joining us. So this semester we've taken a few trips on campus. And you know what, guys? I decided that we needed to take a few more. As a matter of fact, this trip was so extensive that we will be doing a 2-part episode. Insert oohs and ahs of fascination here. Thanks, Claire. But yes, we have a special 2-part episode for you, and we're talking community food. Now, as a fellow student in these challenging economic times, we know that everything we do has to be on a budget. So for this episode and the next, we want to talk about the communal lunch that happens every Wednesday in the Student Success Center at the St. James campus and the Good Food Market that happens every Thursday. Both extremely budget friendly and best of all, healthy. So I had the opportunity to sit with Jen, Neha, Georgia, and Miriam to talk about the communal lunch, and it was not only insightful but also inspiring. So, without further ado, here's our lunch table talk. You see what I did there? I hope you enjoy. So we are in the Student Success Hub, located just next to the food court at our St. James campus. And today we'll be checking out our communal lunch project that happens here every single Wednesday at 12:30. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today to talk about this. I discovered the communal lunch last semester. One of my classmates told me about it, and the first time I went, we had a pasta and it was so good. That was my first time having like vegan pasta ever, and I was like, yeah, I'm sold on the vision. I came one time this semester, and again it was great. Took home the recipe and everything. So, and I told my producer about it like immediately. I was like, we have to do an episode on this. I think it's such an amazing opportunity, and just hearing Jen speak about this project, like you speak with so much passion and drive for it, and I know a lot of students just benefit just by virtue of having a warm meal, but they also get to learn and having a healthy meal at that, because I mean we have options and we're grateful for the options, but the options that we have might not always be healthy, and I'm so grateful that you created this space and platform that people can have that. So thank you, Jen.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm really grateful that you two ladies decided to join us today to have this discussion. So we will start with your name, the program you're involved in, and how you got involved with the communal lunch. So we'll start with you, Jen.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Khdrea. So my name is Jennifer Mitsche. I'm a professor and researcher at George Brown. And this program is an application of that research. So we started a research project called Communal Lunch Project. And really this is a spin-off, an application. It's a weekly whole food and community engagement program trying to provide opportunities for non-culinary students to cook with chefs and learn how to prepare easy, seasonal, affordable, and delicious meals. Yes, heavy on the delicious. And then they share that meal with a larger group at communal tables.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the next lovely lady and or chef at the table.
I'm Georgia. I'm a chef. I teach in the culinary programs across the street as well. And I actually came to the community lunch food program through Miriam. And it was a quick introduction on the very first day of school to Jennifer.
Yes.
And then you emailed and reached out, and we've gone from there. And it's been so special for me because I teach part-time, and so it can feel very isolating, and having the opportunity to connect and cook with students has just been a dream.
Yeah.
Lovely. And so we move on to the introducer. Miss Miriam, go right ahead.
Oh, I'm so honored and delighted to be here. My name's Miriam. I'm also a chef at George Brown, and the Communal Lunch project has been a highlight of my career, and personally as well. And it's those relationships, as Chef Georgia was mentioning, and Jennifer, that really embodies everything that the Communal Lunch project is about.
Hey, my name is Neha Anand. I'm a social service worker student, and I joined the Communal Lunch program as a way to connect with my other peers and also learn more about the connections between food and community and the experience as well, because I've never really had that before. So this was a great way for me to learn about it and experience it.
Thank you. All right, so Jen, we'll start with you. What is the Communal Lunch?
Okay, the what is very tied up in the why, so I'm going to sort of address both of them. And really, when you see people share a meal, the same meal, they feel connected. Something happens. They meet each other's eyes. You see conversations spring up between peers, between friends, between strangers. And it's really simple, right? But what's happened over the last 5 decades really is that in campus food spaces and in food culture in general, we have really put up barriers to simple. And so really, this is an attempt to create frameworks and networks where it's easy to do this, right? To get together, cook, and eat communally on campus. And it's not something we're used to doing in institutional space, but we're proving that it can be done and that it opens up a different kind of learning opportunity and a different way to connect to community.
Yeah, and I think even as students, a lot of times you only connect with people in your program, and I think, like you said, it's a great time for people to strike up a conversation between strangers. You meet someone who is doing something completely different from what you're doing, and then you have someone, like if you're passing on the hallway, you're like, oh, I met you here, and you have the opportunity to just like talk and build friendships and community, like you said earlier. So that's really, really great. So for you, Georgia, can you tell me why you got involved?
I got involved on a selfish reason, first off, I'll say, is because I, even as an instructor, kind of felt isolated on the campus, right? Like, because I am so part-time, I don't utilize the staff spaces as much. I don't get to see my peers in terms of other teachers as much. And I know, having been a student at George Brown a while ago, even within our programs, it can feel very isolating. So the opportunity to break down barriers between programs and create community was just the perfect opportunity to do that. And again, I really truly believe at the end of the day, we become chefs to form community and to bring people together around a table, because we all eat at the end of the day, and we're supposed to do it in community. So yeah, and I think, again, last point on this is just like, as we continue into this very technological era, we are so behind screens, and that really leads to isolation. And so to have something that literally, we're putting our phones down at the table, whether the students are there cooking or if you're eating afterwards, your phone is away. And so you're fully engaged with people sitting across the table from you, or you're using your hands, or you're thinking differently. And I think that was just like, you've created such an amazing opportunity for us to detach and reconnect.
Yes.
You know?
I love that.
Nice.
I love that. I love putting those two together, detaching and reconnecting. That's beautiful. So how, for you, Neha, you've been doing this for how long now?
Well, I would say
Last semester.
since last semester, yes.
Yeah.
Coming into this Communal Lunch program, I really didn't know what to expect. I had an idea that maybe it would be something where I'd get a chance to learn about healthy cooking, learning about more practical skills in the kitchen, which was amazing. And I also knew that there was going to be a feeling of community, and as a student, I love connecting with others, and that's really why I joined as well. But I had no idea what it would turn out to be. I had no idea how much it would help my mental health, my relationship with food, especially as a woman who's like had personal experiences with EDs and stuff. Being present when I'm eating is something I've really struggled with lately, especially with technology. And just after every time we have these communal lunches, I feel fulfilled, I feel full, and I feel full of love, but also my body feels just much more in tune with the world around me, which is so important to me.
You walked out of one lunch and said, "This warmed my soul."
I said that. I
remember.
said those exact words. And it really has. And seeing the real impact that this has made on the GBC community, like I get to not only be volunteering alongside an incredible mentor, but also when I'm supporting and serving the food and I see students sitting down together and talking, and it's an environment, a program that's dedicated towards providing real nutritious food and educating the students about what they're eating, and then also ensuring that it's a safe space. And I want to highlight on that too. It really feels like a safe space.
I love that because again, a lot of the times you just eat, you put a show on, and that's it. There's no conversation happening, there's no opportunity to connect, and even as a student you're rushing, so it's just like the quickest thing I can get to eat and then you move along. But this really gives you the chance to just sit down, be mindful, like you said, and connect. So my next question then is to you, Miriam. Why is this communal lunch important to you?
I feel that as a teacher, as a chef, as a human being, it's my responsibility to ensure that the student body, the student community, the George Brown community has access to food, and how can I play a role in it. But this program brings such depth of humanity, and the energy that you bring in when you are part of this project, whether it's in the kitchen with Chef Neha, when you come down and you're connecting with the people that are all sitting at a communal table together, that energy is reciprocal, and that's what it's all built on these relationships. And that's something that the other vendors that are surrounded by the tables that we have here cannot provide. They don't nourish the same way. This is offering a vital program that feeds our community on so many levels. It's so important, and I feel like honestly, it is the most incredible feeling to be an honor and privilege to be part of this. And as much energy as you put in, it comes right back to you, and then, within the whole community. So yeah.
So, given the economic times that we're living in, I know that this communal lunch is a pay what you can model. And can you tell me, Jen, why was that so important to instill with this program?
I'm going to start with a quote that has guided our project that I read in an article in 2020. It was by Ligaya Mishan, and it was an article about protests and how protests emerge, and then right away food systems pop up around them because there are people protesting. They need to be fed, right? And so suddenly this very spontaneous food system, people were cooking at home, bringing food to the protesters. And she writes in this article, this quote, nourishment is a prerequisite to equity. Right? So when we think about well-being, right, we're asking ourselves, do we all feel connected to this community? Do we feel all right? And but really, are we all being nourished equitably? Right? And when we talk about equity, if we're not talking about nourishment, then we're not fully talking about equity. So that's why pay what you can was, come in, join the space, right? If you can help us pay for ingredients, fantastic. If you can't today, don't worry about it. So that's really, that's been at the heart of it.
And then how do you keep this project going? How does it remain sustainable? Because again, not everybody will have the opportunity to pay. So how do we, fight for justice, but also allow the space to always be accessible?
Yeah. It's institutional support, and I think institutional champions are critical. So the Dean of the Center for Preparatory and Liberal Studies, Susan Toes, has been that champion. And so it's about finding pockets of funds, right, to support valuable programming. So she's identified this as valuable and has identified pockets of funding that can support it, because it is having an impact and it's at a reasonably low budget. So that's the magic. Now it's the continued funding that is always a piece of managing the program, but we feel supported by the institution. So that's a really critical piece.
That's good.
Yeah.
One of my teachers last semester told us that everything is political. And currently, given the situation between Canada and the US, how do you see this project going forward, and what impacts do you think that would have to the communal lunch and the mission that we're supporting here?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the wonderful attention on Canadians on each other is really important, because what we've tried to also uphold is a responsibility to sustainably sourced ingredients. We do our best to source from local farmers. We also started sourcing from TMU's Urban Agricultural Farm, Rooftop Farm. And so we're already, in the business of shopping local, supporting local, and connecting, building bridges. It's what we've done. Like, we have this incredible talent across the street, like incredible wealth of talent, and we have students over here who need this knowledge, right? So together we've created this bridge that's actually now a vehicle for sharing knowledge. And I think when we think about our current times, it's sometimes just looking around saying, so who should we be working with? How should we work together? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Georgia, can you tell me, as you think about your future as a chef and what your values are, how does a communal lunch fit into that? And even beyond GBC, how do you see that making an impact on the world?
That is a loaded question, but beautiful question. I think, again, it has been the ethos and the drive that has made me the chef I wanted to be as a child, and grown into this position where the root of why I cook is to form community and bring people around the table. And I think, again, one of my favorite ways to cook is very, I don't know, I hate using the word simplified because it sounds like it's easy, but just really stripping it back. It doesn't have to be fancy. Canada has such an abundance of produce that we have access to us, and sometimes it's not an attractive vegetable, but rutabagas are grown here and they require a fraction of the amount of water that an avocado does. You don't have to worry about it traveling miles and miles to get to our plate, and it's actually as equally nutritious for us here as it would be an avocado. So I think we just get the opportunity as chefs to continue to educate. And my favorite way is educating around a cutting board, I think, and even in class, it's when we're chopping garlic and it's hey, did you know that the reason garlic feels so sticky on your fingers is because it has such a high sugar content? And yeah,
Garlic.
That's why it feels sticky on your fingers. And that's also why it burns. People think that you add your onion and garlic at the same time in a pot because recipes are always kind of written like that. But realistically, you should be adding your garlic after your onions have sweat out, because the sugar content burns so fast. And that's why people often burn their garlic, is because of the high sugar content in it. So it's things like that. That's just a random tidbit, and I just get to share that with you guys.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Garlic burns really easily because of sugar.
But that's how you learn.
But that's how you learn,
space,
and
right?
and
it sticks.
And it sticks, and even silly things the other day when we were cooking, there's a lot of food scraps, and I told my students to put it in a bag because I was going to take it home and make stock with it, and they were you can use all of these for stock, and I was yeah, and it's going to make a super flavorful stock. So again, it's a mini moment of education, but hopefully they're values that stick and can translate quite easily.
Yeah. And I mean, again, you could use it for the stock, or you could use it for, if you have a backyard garden, you could use it as mulch and stuff like that. So I think that's so important, that the knowledge that you share with the students is not just for them in that moment, but something that they can carry on with their future after they've left GBC, as they just go into citizens in the world, trying to create this sustainable world for us to live and exist for so much longer. Like, that's so important that you are sharing that with them. So thank you for that.
And it's accessible, tangible information, right? Like, that is so easy to apply to your day-to-day life, and it doesn't require you to have any other skills or tools to do it, right? So it's fun.
Yeah. And it's one of the most important skills any human can
100%,
have.
yeah.
And our culture has resulted in a lot of de-skilling, and now a food culture that is not affordable or sustainable, right? So these little moments, that ripple effect is really important, right?
Yeah.
You said you do social and service work. So I do community work. So we're working in tandem. And I think a big part of our field of work is, again, sustainability and just building community. How do you intend to take all the knowledge that you've learned here in this space into your field of work post leaving GBC?
Absolutely. Wow, that was also a loaded question. I have learned so much so far being part of this program, but something that I absolutely want to take with me as I continue my community services is hearing perspectives from others and just having a curiosity to learn. And I think that translates, even though this is it's a communal lunch program, it's so much more than that, as we've all highlighted. And recognizing the importance of nutrition and I volunteer at Fort York Food Bank and Dilly Bread Food Bank, so I've always, growing up, I just realized the other day I grew up watching Anthony Bourdain. He's like one of my idols, and just his thirst for life and his thirst for food. But something that I've recognized a connection between this communal lunch program is you don't need to travel the world to find that. You can build a community from where you are. And in Canada, I feel like that's so important now more than ever as well, to learn about the produce in Canada and to find empowerment in that and to support people in their communities and to find inspiration from them and hear their stories, because usually when you're learning about food, there's a story behind it, and storytelling is something that I think it's such an important way to learn. I think it is another way to holistically educate a group of people on really important life skills. So in the social service worker field and community services, definitely just keeping those things in mind is going to be very important for me.
The storytelling aspect of it is, I think that's so important, because that's how a lot of culture gets passed down.
Yes.
And like you were saying earlier, a lot of men in the culinary space, they would have learned a lot of things from their mom and their grandmas, and it's in those spaces where they learned a lot about their culture, their backgrounds as well. So that's really important. Thank you. So for you, Miss Miriam, you probably have the last but very fun question. What's your favorite thing that you've prepared with the communal lunch, and why?
Oh, my favorite thing that I've prepared. Well, there's two favorite moments. One is when a class of mine came in and they created the menu. So it was just wonderful to see these chefs who I truly believe we have that responsibility to be agents of change, to advocate for better food systems, equitable communities, to ensure that everybody's voice and story is on the plate. So the class had the opportunity to create and design their own menu, so for them to express themselves through, the producers and how that was going to be reflected on the plate. So that was really wonderful. Making a lentil stew and apple crumble where they got to meet the farmers and the flour was milled for them. And another wonderful opportunity was, because the meals are vegan and so that everybody is able to access these delicious, nourishing, culturally appropriate meals that are enjoyed in the most beautiful setting, because everybody deserves to eat around beauty, and that's really important as well, was coconut squash soup. And what was so wonderful was playing around with the recipe, but every single person in the kitchen contributed to tasting it, the flavor profile, what else it needed, any other hints of things, so that you shed those power dynamics in this kitchen, in this setting. And we're all there, with the same collective goal. And to see the students say like, oh, I have agency over this soup, right? Like I can say if it needs something a little bit more sweet or spicy, or maybe it needs a little acid. So the soup was delicious, but it was the process and everybody's, voice, and to feel like, yeah, I have agency over this soup, and then for it to be served, like just to see how all of that and what everybody was sharing, how that's embodied in a bowl is so powerful. So yeah.
And being a student here at George Brown, we have so many different cultures. We're so diverse.
Yes.
So even in preparation with the communal lunches, do you find that students will say, oh, I have something like this in my culture?
Yes, and that's what happens. So people come in, and as just to build on what George is saying, is that, the culinary school is the largest culinary school in Canada, okay? Then we're at George Brown, this campus. There's many other campuses. We're all so busy. There's just so much disconnection on so many levels. And then when people come into this kitchen, they're sharing right away. They might not know each other, and they're introducing themselves. They're telling stories about what they grew up eating. They're exchanging recipes. Relationships are built. And then a lot of times there's newcomers to the country, and this might be the first time that they have the courage to even introduce themselves at the table. And then they share about stories of ingredients, or where they like to buy this ingredient. So yeah, it really nourishes community, diversity on so many levels. And the portal is food, right? And thanks to Jennifer for creating this incredible program. Yeah.
It's just an idea without all of you.
Yeah. It's really important.
Thank you. Hats off to you, Jen.
Hats off to all of you. And one thing that Neha, you had said is that serving, right? And I've seen you do this, right, where you're serving the food and you're having a conversation with that person who's receiving the food, and it's very casual, very comfortable, and it's not transactional, right? Where we see that sort of consumer server, right, dynamic in our fast food culture, like there's no contact, and then to be in this situation, it's not transactional. There's something very, very reciprocal. There's that everyone is receiving something. We're all putting something in, and we're all taking something away. It's interesting. We're all work. We're part-time, and we all have felt very connected, right, through this program. So there's something really interesting in this space.
I love that. Thank you. So, last question for everyone. What's one thing that you would want listeners to hear about this program, and what their key takeaways might be, or where do you want to see this program go for the next couple months, years even?
Yeah, years. Let's go for years. That we're building a different food culture, right? And I said earlier, it's not something that we're used to doing in these institutional spaces, but we're watching how collaborations can really solve that problem of working in institutional space and making it cozy. We're working with a class today. They've broken up into 3 groups. One group was cooking, one group was setting up the space, making it cozy and beautiful, and the other group was coming up with an icebreaker and conversation starter for the lunch. You can hear people are starting to come in, and we're going to have a great lunch. But I think what's happening here is the sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined the term third spaces. Mm-hmm. This idea that it's places that aren't home, aren't work or a classroom, but this other place where you go and people know you. They see you, we recognize each other, and you feel welcome. And you feel comfortable, and you might have spontaneous conversations, right? So there's something about this, and culturally, it's really important. Oh, nice. As they're just getting ready to start the lunch. So culturally, we're changing food culture, and that's what we hope we can do here.
But I think that also inspires purpose, because outside of work and school, sometimes you're like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And I think having extra spaces
Yeah.
where you probably see your impact more directly to definitely helps, where it's not just tied to particular outcomes, but there's so much more that can grow from a space like that. So I think I'm gonna cut it here because they're busy there. But thank you so much. This was beautiful. I wish it was Thanks so much for listening, Huskies. We didn't get to do a formal wrap-up of the interview because it was time to eat, and the meal and conversation was so good and nourishing. As Neha said, it fed my soul. And I really hope you too will take the time on this and any Wednesday before the semester ends, or even if you're a new Husky coming in, when you start, you'll take some time on a Wednesday to share in this experience. See you next week where we talk the Good Food Market for part 2.
So we're a nonprofit market, and the purpose is to be able to sell affordable fruits and vegetables to our community of students, creating that community around food, being a little bit of a hub where students can kind of drop by.
Until next time, stay safe, we're getting warm, and walk good.